being able to do face-to-face sessions is that I am looking at a name. I don't know what you look like or who you are or your personality or what your goals are. So it's very impersonal, and I don't generally prefer that. So if you can tell me something about yourself, I mean, nobody else can see it besides me, so it doesn't go out to the whole class. Just so I feel like I have some connection with a screen of people's names. And because unfortunately we're doing a lot of stuff online, there's a lot of ability to cheat. I don't like to use that term, but inappropriately using sources you should not be using. That I'm asking, before you can move on with the class, all you have to do is read the academic honesty contract, and in a box, there's a box that says write submission. Or text submission. You just put your name in there and say, I understand, and submit that. So that's our contract. Since I guess I could try to get you guys to actually send me scans, but that's just a hot mess. So just sign your name in there. You're on the count, so the only person who should have access to the count is you. So it's binding, if you will. So that's just that kind of blah stuff. But then just to go through here, yeah, you're going to probably see way more of my stuff on my page that you want to, because I am struggling to figure out how to make this stuff move back and forth. Okay. So syllabus is important. Summer is super fast. Technically, if we were meeting face-to-face, there's 2 labs. So I'm designating Monday and Tuesday as lab 1. So some people will come to these Monday 10 a.m. sessions. Some people will do Tuesday at 1 p.m. They're the same sessions. I should go through basically the same stuff. Of course, if somebody asks a question in one section, they may not ask it in the second section. So other than that, what I present to you should be identical. So those 2 come and go to either session you want. If you feel like repeating the same stuff, you can call them if you want. But Monday and Tuesday at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, Monday's 10, Tuesday's 1, it's the same information. I'm just treating it as one lab, but giving people who can't come to one time block or having a doctor's appointment or something that comes up, they've got another opportunity to go over the same material with me, ask questions. And then Wednesday and Thursday, Monday and Wednesday are the same times, but there would be a second lab. So new material starts on Wednesday and on Thursday. So for the syllabus, because of all this kind of complexity, I've got a very super simple, basic syllabus quiz. I probably should make it much more detailed than it is, but I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of this stuff is getting created day by day, so it's not perfect. There will be lots of, unfortunately, challenges until things get much smoother. But the syllabus quiz is just to reinforce that you actually look through the syllabus. All of it would be nice, but at least the key points. And then run this quiz. It's 5 points, super easy. You're allowed to use your syllabus. That's kind of the point, is to have the syllabus and make you actually read through some of the stuff. So just take that quiz. It'll be easy peasy. But the general syllabus, I call it general syllabus because there'll be a lab handout with all the information you need to know every single lab period. I generally send that out as one huge syllabus, which I call the detailed syllabus. I'll also cut and piece to the individual lab folders. But I have not, there's a couple things I'm still tweaking on that, so I have not been able to post that, but this week's material is in the lab folders. Then this is supposed to go to this meetup. I don't know if it's actually working correctly. I'll come back to our webcam thing. So syllabus is important. I'll pull that up in a minute if I can get it to pull up. But then the other thing on Blackboard here is these lab activities. So every lab period, so Monday and Tuesday is one lab, Wednesday and Thursday is separate labs. So new material, you're going to get 2 different things of material every week. So today we're working on lab 1. So me jibber jabbering is the beginning part, and then the actual material we want you to learn is the anatomical terminology and bone markings. So if you go into this folder, you will see the stuff that I want you to go through. So this lab 1 required material is that lab handout, or I will later call it detailed syllabus. So it tells you what we want you to know. Unfortunately, we're bouncing between Blackboard, Quizlet, and Visible Body. So please be careful and make sure you're getting your assignments. I have put stuff in the calendar here. I've never used a course calendar before, so it should have the deadlines in here. Of course, your syllabus also has it, so my computer's being crazy slow. My internet's not really great, so if I drop, I apologize. But you'll see I tried to put in all the deadlines. Unfortunately, for me, it's pulling up all the sections that I teach. So I don't know if those tell you when they're coming up, if you get any kind of email or warning about those. I'm hoping, but I'm still trying to figure out how to get that to give you guys notifications. I will try to send out emails also. I must admit, as the semester goes on, I'm hoping you know the pattern. I don't have to send out emails every day. Turn this in, turn this in, turn this in. But for the start, I will try to give you reminders just to get you into the rhythm of things here. So let's go back into that lab activities folder. So for most weeks, for the labs, you will do a Quizlet. So my goal is that I want you to come in here, listen to my spiel, and then I'm hoping that you will immediately branch over, go over into Quizlet, and actually start going through and doing the Quizlets. That's basically like you're in lab working on the material that you're going through and you're practicing. So take your lab handouts, go to the Quizlets. Again, Quizlets I call it a quiz, but you can use your notes for that one. You're free. Ideally, I want you to get to a point where you can use it as a practice and do it without your notes. But for this first time here where you're trying to learn the material, going through Quizlet is unfortunately for a lot of people maybe the best way to start learning the material. So you look at pictures using OpenStax or anything you can find online, and you find these terms, figure out where they are, and then start learning them. So anatomy is a language, so a lot of this is just going to require repetition, repetition, repetition. I wish it was easier than that. I don't like to memorize, so I have to have some association, learn the Latin or Greek, how these things were named. So I've put stuff on Blackboard that helps you tell why these things were named what they were named. If that helps, if it doesn't, then just memorize, if that's what it comes down to. But unfortunately, until you get this language, we really can't move on. So this first lab is a bunch of just learning the Latin terminology. We don't have a lab manual, which I understand is saving you guys a bunch of money, but not having a lab manual makes it difficult because there's so many resources, and OpenStax is free. Because it's free, it's not quite as streamlined and pretty as the more expensive manuals. So if you can afford to buy some old edition Marieb or Allen or some of the other lab manuals out there, so you have it in your hand with nice, pretty pictures, I would recommend it. Pretty much a bone term is a bone term. So it doesn't matter what picture you're looking at, it's still always going to be in the same location. That you try to use some source of information. You determine what works best for you, but because it's free, I will put OpenStax pictures on here. So I've cut and pasted the pages that relate best to each of the labs. So today, this is all the terminology stuff. So I will pull up a PowerPoint here in a minute with the same pictures on here. And yes, you can see again, it's a lot of stuff. These terms will come back again and again. They relate to the bones, relate to the muscles, they relate to a lot of the other stuff we do in A&P. These terms will always be referenced to these different sections here. So we'll come back to this. I just wanted to show you OpenStax. And the pictures on here are not terrible. They're more the bones and the muscles where the more expensive lab manuals have cleaner, prettier, if you will, pictures. So let's go back. So OpenStax. So today is just getting through and learning all these terms. So I'll open up the lab handout real quick. Well, actually, I think I have it pulled up here. I don't know if it'll actually show you or not. Let me see if I can go back. Okay, I'm just going to pull it up on here since I know it should be showing you this. So today, terminology on all the things in these boxes here is what you're supposed to learn, which relates to that naked person picture that we just saw. So directional terms, and I'll talk about these a little more in just a second. So this is the required material. If it's listed on here, you have to know. If it's not, you don't. So this is your checklist, if you will. Go through, and when you're finding stuff, make sure you can do all these. And for the bone markings, we're just looking at the marking and then the description. An example is helpful, but it's not required for you to know that. And then I'll come back and talk about the quizzes here in just a second. So let's get through the rest of the material first. But there will be quizzes, a bunch of them. Quizlets, which I already told you that the goal is I want you to do them as like a lab. You're prepping for a lab. You're going through and looking at the material, looking it up in the book, typing in the answer. So that is going to be due on Tuesday at midnight for the Monday, Tuesday session, and then on Thursday nights for the Wednesday and Thursday lab session material. Okay, so let me see if I close this out. If it'll let me change out here. Okay, so Quizlet. I sent out, or they should still be in the announcements, a link to Quizlet for the class. So every class has their own, well, since I have two sections, I combined them, so the A and D sections. So most of you guys are in section A. But make sure you're actually in the class when you're doing these. I've had people search my name before and find the quizzes, but register that way. You have to be doing it in the class. And I sent out the join link, so most of you guys should already be in here. But so ideally what wants to happen is I come in, I give my blah, 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 20 minutes or so, and then I send you out to go work on these Quizlets. So for the ones that we're doing today, that is due Tuesday at midnight, it's the bone markings and the terminology. Like I told you, that there's a lot of terms because you got to get the language down. But if you go into terminology, the key here is there are different options. What I need you guys to do, you're free to do any of the other ones you want, but the only one that I will give you the credit for is this right version. We want you to be able to spell, want you to be able to identify stuff the best possible. So you come here and you answer the questions, blah, 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 blah. Once you get through here, it tells you how many are remaining. And when you get all of them correct, it will submit it to me and tell me that you have finished it. You got 100% on it. And then you'll get your points. Please make sure you're only doing it in the right section. If you're trying to do it for the assignments. Again, you're free to do any other version you want up to this. This is the, of course, web version of Quizlet. There is an app, but the app, there are some glitches, or not glitches, as far as it goes. If you miss a question and then go back and do it, or you reset it, it resets the notification to me, so it disappears. So please be careful if you're on the app. I think you can even reset it on the web version. If you reset it on the web version, usually it will still notify me that you got 100%. But on the apps, if you reset it, it disappears. The notification goes away. It doesn't see it anymore. It doesn't think you did it. It's an error in their system, but unfortunately, I can't fix that. So just I'm warning you that if you do the Quizlets and then reset it or start over again and don't complete it, and unfortunately the notification then you got them all correct disappears for me. So if you use the app, just make sure you come back in here and make sure it's 100% correct. Otherwise, I won't get the notification. So hopefully that's okay. Let me see if anybody has posted anything question-wise. You guys should be able to turn on your mics. If you have any questions, yell out anytime.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes. I can't see you right now, so tell me who is speaking, please.
Oh, this is Shalom.
Okay. Hi, Shalom.
Hi. Okay, so for the quizzes, do we need to, I think I saw like when you're doing the written thing, like you could either do like definition first, like term first. Does it matter? Probably definition first.
Yes, I'm trying to remember. It's because the first column, and then it'll give you a picture, and then the answer is second column. So I'm trying to remember. Let me see if I go back to Quizlet and see what they call it. Yeah, see, I can't even see what they're labeling. I'm assuming second column would be definition.
Yeah.
So we want, so we want the picture and the definition, and then you give the answer, not vice versa would be much harder for you to do because the definitions for these are not super perfect definitions. They're more just generalized. So
right. And then sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
Two more questions. Okay. Also, okay, so you're saying that after we take like the written quiz, it's gonna automatically send to you, so we don't have to do it. We don't have to like screenshot or anything and send it to you separately. Like we just need to finish it.
Not unless you see that it's not showing up as me grading it, and then kind of after the fact, I've had people go, hey, I got 100% on it. What happened? And then they'll go back and send a screenshot and I'll fix it. That's usually only if they reset it and try to start taking it again. Again, I want you to take it bunches of times, but unfortunately, if you actually tell it to reset, it makes the notification to me disappear.
Okay, and we can, it'll be like the last attempt will be graded, I guess.
Yes. I mean, in theory, as long as you don't hit the reset button, the notification will stay there.
Okay.
And once I've already put your grade in, then reviewing for things like the exams, you can reset it and take it 100 times. I want you to use that source. I just don't want you to accidentally lose your points. So there's trying to figure out exactly why some people's notifications disappear. The best I figured out is they hit the reset, and when they hit the reset, it disappears. The notification does.
Awesome. Lastly, I'm so sorry. Lastly,
You're free to ask lots of questions. Go for it.
I started working on the terminology Quizlet, like just a little bit, and I noticed like, okay, there was one term that was like parietal visceral peritoneum. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that I don't think I saw, like that term was in one of the definitions, but the term wasn't one of the terms. I don't know if how I worded that makes sense or not, but basically, like,
so you're saying you found something on Quizlet that was not on the lab handout. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. I haven't looked at the lab handout yet, so that's probably what I was missing. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I try to go through and make sure that the Quizlets are fine-tuned, that they're only asking stuff that's on the lab handout. I must admit, because I add and remove things sometimes between semesters, that I may have missed something this time where it's not, something is on there that shouldn't be. And I will work on checking and making sure that the lab handouts and the Quizlet, same words are asked on both. So there's no extra stuff or missing stuff, if you will.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much.
But that lab handout is all the words I want you to know. So if there is something missing on Blackboard or on Quizlet, please try to find it somewhere and let me know if you can so I can get that fixed.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
So that's the key things, is look over the syllabus. I guess I could try pulling up the syllabus and showing you guys stuff, a few things on there, but it's kind of boring. But let's see if I can actually get it to pull up the syllabus. Okay, it's being a pain and doesn't want to pull up the general syllabus. I could probably pull it up on Blackboard and it would work, but on my Word file, it doesn't want to pull it up. There it goes. Okay. Okay, so the syllabus is always boring, so I'm just going to skim through here. Of course, these meetup times, you're free to ask me questions. Emails, I'll take questions. Part of doing these meetup times is I'm hoping not to have to answer the same email question 100 times for all the students. So if there's any issues, that we can get some of that out on these meetings. But I guess I realized I got so sidetracked. This is what I always do. So I get going and I forget to ever actually introduce myself. I mentioned that my information was on Blackboard, but my name is Miss Schmaman, or Miss S is usually easiest just because I don't have to type out my long last name and you don't have to type out my long last name. So if you need me, my email is, of course, on the syllabus here. I put this huge contact policy on here just for you guys to realize that, as I'm sure you do, you have lives, I have a life, that I am currently balancing 2 children in addition to doing this. So weekends and evenings I need to dedicate to them. So I can't guarantee you I'm going to be able to email you back on the evenings or the weekends. So please bear with me. Give me 24 hours before you shoot me multiple emails frantically telling me stuff. I will try to get back to it as soon as I can. If after 24 hours you don't hear it from me, please email me again. My email account has been making emails disappear. The one reason for that is if you use your personal email account. Please don't. I will send all my emails to the AUM account. I really need you to send me everything through the AUM account, your AUM account, because that way I know that our email system generally won't stick you in junk or delete you because it doesn't recognize it and thinks it's possibly a virus or whatever. The other thing is, I don't have as many students as I normally do. I normally have 150. I only have 30 in the summer, but still, that's still 30 students. So please, when you send an email, I'm okay with you not saying hi and hello. I'll tolerate that. You need to give me your name, at least your first name. I do have a couple students with the same first name, so last name would be nice also. I can't interpret, it is too hard to interpret those AUM emails and try to figure out who's sending me this message. So I know a lot of you are just used to sending quick text messages through to my email, but I need a name, please. Please, please, a name. I'm not worried about the sections, so I can sort out the sections. When I have 6 sections, writing your A, B, C, or whatever section is important, but for you guys, that's not a huge deal. Okay, so objectives, I'm sure you guys know it's designed to be a 2-part course. A&P 1 covers the basic terminology, then we dive into bones, muscle, the brain, nervous system, and then special senses, so ear, eye. And then A&P 2 will pick up on the other systems. Midterm grades are right before the holiday. Unfortunately, we have a lab exam like right then, so those will not include that second exam. but I keep everything on Blackboard up to date, so you'll know what your grade is continuously. So not having that midterm semester grade include the second exam shouldn't be a big deal, but it will definitely be in before the drop date. And then the schedule here, I highlighted in colors, I put in a calendar, I'll show you in a minute. And then I'm trying to also put everything on Blackboard's calendar so that we can keep up with all the stuff that's due. So today, just main topics we're going through, terminology, and then throwing in the bone markings just because to balance out some of the other weeks where we got too much stuff. We're just going to start a little ahead of the game with the bones. I know in lecture you're going to, unfortunately in the summer, there's no way for us to keep lecture and lab on the same pace. In the spring and the fall, we've got Labor Day in there to slow us down a little bit. But in the summer, we just have to plug it through. So unfortunately, lab is always going to be ahead of lecture pretty much this semester. So just learn it, and hopefully lecture will then reinforce it. But there's a ton of quizzes. I know that some people will think it's too much busy work, but it's repetition. So I showed you the Quizlet that I'm hoping is your way of studying, like you're in lab, go through and actually find the stuff. Set aside a time, ideally right now after we're done meeting, to go through and try to find those terms, look them up, practice spelling them, and then study from there however works best for you. I would love for you guys to be able to afford to purchase a skull at least and maybe some bones, but I understand that's really not feasible for a lot of people to purchase the actual three-dimensional stuff. So just find what works for you. But today, getting through this terminology, hopefully doing those two Quizlets, the terminology and the bone marking ones, that you'll have that done before it's due tomorrow at midnight. My deadlines are always going to be midnight because who knows when you guys work. So, and then the syllabus quiz, which is super easy. Again, both Quizlet and the syllabus quiz, you're free to use any resource you want, sit in front of you, as long as you can get it. Quizlet, of course, you can take as many times you want until you get all the answers correct. So those should be easy points there. And then that online honesty contract I showed you. And then the harder ones are going to be the Blackboard quizzes, which it's not even posted yet because I am still finishing it. The Blackboard quizzes are the one that require the Respondus lockdown browser and the webcam, which I tried shooting out hundreds of emails. I know you guys get tired of me sending the same email over again, just to make sure you knew that there was no exceptions for the Blackboard quizzes and the exams. You have to have that webcam. I know you think we should just trust you, but unfortunately over the years we're well aware that somebody's going to try to take advantage of the system, even with the webcam. So we want you all to be on the same playing field, and the best way to do that is eliminate some of the unknowns by using that webcam. It's not live. I'm the only one that sees it. So the Respondus program is very good. I mean, they can't ever foolproof keep out all hackers, but they block out access to your camera. They're the only one that's using the camera while you're taking these quizzes and exams, so nobody else should be able to see it or access it. So I just want to make sure you realize that your safety is, of course, important to us. And I'm not sitting there staring over your shoulder while you're taking this. I only see the video, usually 24 hours is the soonest after you've taken the quiz. So it's always later on, so you don't have to feel like somebody's staring at you the whole time while you're taking the quiz. So those are, because that's harder, because it requires you to use the webcam, no notes allowed on it. You have to type in the answers. That one is always going to be on Sundays. So that's the harder one. That one is kind of stepping you up towards what the exam is going to be like, which is always going to be on Blackboard, no notes, fill in the blank kind of questions, like if we were actually doing it in class. And then our Wednesday, Thursday lab 2 here, we'll be working on tissues. So I'll try pulling up a PowerPoint slide, which I'm going to try to do here also if I can get to work, and go through that with you. And then you'll have access to that PowerPoint to review. And then, of course, there's a Quizlet to go along with that. And then there will be an additional, so 2 Blackboard quizzes due on Sunday. You can do them ahead of time. Oh, well, once I get them posted, you can do them ahead of time. There's no very small window for you to take these. Once I open them, you'll have as much time as you need to do those up until Sunday at midnight. So if you're somebody that gets done and learns the material really fast, you can do it Friday, or you can do it Saturday, you can do it Sunday. The only one that's going to be more of a time constraint are the exams. The exams will be only a 24-hour window, but everything else you'll have multiple days to work on stuff. And the Blackboard quizzes and exams are the only thing that you won't have the option of taking it as many times as you want. And then I don't want to bore you, you can look through this, but you'll see a pattern here. The Quizlets are always going to be due on Tuesday or Thursday. Then, unfortunately, next week we will start throwing in our third program, which is Visible Body. So Visible Body is our way of trying to get something more three-dimensional in there, since we can't actually touch the bones. So please, yes, I understand that's a money. You had to pay for that. You have access to it for both now and A&P2. Unfortunately, we're not currently using it in A&P2 directly, but you would still be able to use it if it was a good resource for you. And it's what we're using instead of having you pay $120 for a lab manual, which is what the cost of our old lab manual was. That we're doing this $50 cost instead. So I'll try to pull up Visible Body. There's still a bunch of people that are missing from Visible Body and a few from Quizlet, but I have a strange feeling that the ones that are on Visible Body and Quizlets, and probably the ones that are currently listening to me, are the ones that are not the ones I need to be bothering with, that you guys are on the ball and you're getting this stuff done. But if you have not created a Visible Body course, please do so. If you're having financial issues, it does give you a 14-day trial. So the integumentary system next week is the first one we'll be using that program for. So technically, if you're trying to push your days to save money and try to get through until your money comes in for whatever financial aid and or your work schedule, that you cannot enroll until this coming weekend for that, but you will need it by next week. And then it's pretty much going through. We're doing the integumentary system. And then, yeah, I told you, summer's fast. So right off the bat, we're going to dive in and we're going to have our first mini exam. It's smaller amount of points. That's why I call it mini. It's 50 points. So it'll cover lab 1, 2, and 3, which is terminology. It will be the tissues, bone markings, and then just the skin models. The skin model has, I think, just 17 terms, I know, but it's less than a lot of weeks, 17 terms. So the skull is, in my opinion, one of the worst things the whole entire semester, and that starts next Thursday, but it is not on this mini lab exam. I cut off the material here, but we have to keep going because it's summer and it's fast, but you'll have some downtime to work on that mini lab exam. And then keep learning the skull before you get quizzed on it. And then we'll continue on with the bones. I apologize if I'm making me sick going too fast on this. And then appendicular. And then we'll throw in a few handouts, kind of getting some physiology activities in here, just easy points. Yes, a lot of people think it's just busy work, but it'll be easy points because those handouts are 10 points apiece. And then, unfortunately, the way the semester falls is that midterm exam falls right before the 4th of July holiday. So if there's some huge issues with it only being open on that Friday, because it's right before the holiday, I can open it on the Thursday before. So we'll work on that when we get closer to that. I usually want it to be a 24-hour window, but if we've got a bunch of people that are going to disappear for the holiday, even since a lot of places are open now, the beach is open, that we can discuss that. Even if I don't open it to everybody, if there's a documented exception, I can always add an exception on Blackboard and I'll let individual people take it while everybody else is still blocked out. That's not a big deal. If need be, I'll open it a day early. Just generally people want more time to study, would rather take it later, but I know with the holiday in there, that's kind of a weird balance. Do you want to take it early and have less time to study? But if you're going away, then of course you want to get it done. And then I won't go too much through the rest of this, but then we'll do muscles, then we'll do the nervous system, the eye, and then we'll finish up with our hearing vision stuff. And the final exam is that last day of classes, which is Thursday, July 28th. And the midterm and final are bigger. That mini exam that's here starting next week is the smaller one, just to kind of eliminate some of the material so there's not so much stuff for each of the exam. Then I created this calendar. I've never done this before, but again, in hopes that if I give you something that's nice and structured, you can look at what material is covered, you can look at what quizzes are due that I tried to highlight, when the exams are, just something for those people that really need something black and white where they can check off where things are. So this has a list of all the deadlines and when things are due. And this table down here doesn't have deadlines, but it's kind of a checklist. I guess I could have tried putting the deadlines next to it here to go along with it. Ugh, I don't like that E got bumped to the side there. But this is just to keep track of your scores, but you can also add in you did it, or the due dates if that helps for you. So I'm trying to figure out what kind of visual list is needed for you guys to make sure you actually don't miss any deadlines. Okay, I'm going to carefully scroll back up here. So a ton of points. You can see 520 points. Half of those, a little less than half of those, are from the exams. And then the easy quizzes, the ones that there's no reason why you shouldn't get 100% on them, are the Quizlets and the visible body quizzes, because you can take them as many times as you want. Blackboard quizzes are the hardest ones because they're like the exams. So those you may lose more points on. The lab handouts, there's no reason why you shouldn't get 100% on those. I'll show you next week more when we talk about visible body more. This whole tagging thing, it's just to document that you actually are using visible body, so it's basically freebie points also. Attendance, I'm only making it mandatory that you show up to one of the 2 meetups each week. The other one you do have to actually watch the video, and then you get 5 points. So that's like a ton of freebie points just handed there. And then this syllabus quiz, there's no reason why if you're sitting there looking at your syllabus, you can't answer those multiple choice true-false questions without losing any points. So. Okay, so the rest of this you guys can read. Microsoft Word for the handouts that you're gonna have to turn in to me and then get or convert them to PDFs, but I will send them to you as Word files. So hopefully you can access those. Last semester, I had a ton of students try sending me the Mac Pages Word version, I guess it is. It's their version of Word. I can't open those. I don't have access to a Mac. So please, you have to either convert it to a PDF or you have to use Microsoft Word, which you guys have free access through what is it called? Windows 365. You get that free through the university. So you shouldn't have a reason why you can't access that. Because I know, of course, if you didn't have it through the university, it would be a bunch of money. And then I mentioned that if you can purchase the dissections or the models, they would be very helpful, but you have to figure out if that's in your budget or not. If I had to pick anything for you to purchase, it would be to buy a skull, which is $30, give or take. Okay, if you're motion sickness like me, don't look. I'm going to scroll real fast here. So Blackboard, we were on there, you know what it looks like. I told you that I'm taking attendance through these meetups. Exam, we already talked about the fact that you need to use Respondus Lockdown. There is a practice test on Blackboard just to see if you can get your camera to work and have trouble with the signal. It's not a real test, so it does have real questions in it, but they're like random literature, get to know you random questions. I mean, I just picked some questions and put them on there. They have nothing to do with biology. They're just so you can test out the system. And then this just talks about when you're using Respondus, things that we're asking you not to do and to do. And this is just repeating those quizzes that I just showed you. Of course, if you can't turn something in by the deadline, you have to have a good excuse because you have a week to do everything. And then this policy is the same one that I'm asking you to sign, and that's the syllabus. Okay, syllabi are boring. Any questions on that? I'm going to scroll right back up real quick. Is everybody okay with that? You know how to read a syllabus. A syllabus is boring. Nobody cares about a syllabus. So if we're good on that, so read through that, see if you have any issue. The biggest thing is the deadlines. You need to make yourself a calendar or print out my calendar. Do what you need to do so you don't miss these deadlines. I can't guarantee that I'm going to remember every day before something's due, which is pretty much almost every day, that I'm going to send an email out. So you've got to find some way to make sure that you're not going to miss these deadlines. Because unfortunately, unless you have a really good reason, the answer is just going to be no. You can't go back and take it. So let me go through and pull up this, see if I can pull up this PowerPoint that just talks about terminology here. Okay. So welcome. Online is not ideal, but we can do it, especially this first couple weeks. These are all two-dimensional pictures anyway that you're learning this stuff on. But it's getting that terminology down. So the language you have to learn before you can start speaking it and understanding it. And of course, when you get into, if you go into the nursing field or some other professional field, this is how you're going to talk to each other. So you need to have it as a language that you can fluidly correspond with other people with. So this is where we make you learn all these basic terminology stuff. So when we're doing anything in anatomy, you always start in anatomical position. So they're flattening out the bones. Yes, normally we put our hands at our side, but technically if you feel your arm, the bones are twisted. They're not laying flat, so they're not anatomically correct. So palms forward is the anatomical position. So anytime we're identifying stuff in a person, we're always assuming that they're laying with their hands facing forward in the anatomical position. So anatomy is the study of the parts and the relationship to each other. And of course, the physiology then explains why and how. So that list on that lab handout in the boxes is pretty much all these terms that are listed on these figures from OpenStax. This picture is not too bad on like some of the other ones. But if you see here, what we need you to know is what's on the lab handout is the Latin and Greek terms, so the bold ones. But the other terms here may help you learn them, because frons is the forehead and cranium is, well, the skull. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard the word cranium before. And then facies is the face. Some of them, just the name of them sounds close enough that it wouldn't be too hard to figure out. Oculus or ocular. So if you look at a lot of stuff in the manuals and resources, you'll see the S and then the R at the end. One is a noun and one is the possessive form. So they're the same thing. They just use them based on what context they're referring to in. So ocular versus oculus. And bucca, so you're putting it in your cheek there. Then odic, so this one you can actually do odic or aris for ear. Generally the one in parentheses I don't want you to refer it to, but it's generally, most of these one in parentheses are similar terms. It's the generic English translation in the middle that you can't refer it to as. Just, it will be a way to help you remember it. So I don't know, I don't think it's beneficial for me to go through and name all these. Let me see if I can pick some of the ones that might make sense. So this cervicus is cervical vertebrae. So most of us can do the vertebrae. So we can get cervical, thoracic, our thoracic cage or thoracic vertebrae. And then mamma shouldn't be too bad. We'll refer it as breast tissue, but I think most of us know it's mammary tissue. I mean, abdomen, okay, that one's easy. Trunk, that one's easy. Umbilicus, I think we all know that our umbilical cord is our belly button. And then hip or coccygeal, this is the bone it's named after that you'll see here in a few weeks. Pelvis. So a lot of these are not too bad. Palma is your palm. Digits are your fingers. The ones that are a little less common is like pollock is the special name for the thumb. Carpal bones. Just the nice thing is high school maybe, or just in general conversation, that you may have heard some of the bone names. So carpal bones are your little wrist bones. Ante means the anterior side, and then break is going to be referring to the arm. So you've got antebrachium and brachium, so upper and lower arm. And cubitus is just that cubital region. If you kind of bend your elbow, it kind of makes a little cup-like cube structure in there. So these, there's a lot of them, but if you really look at them, a bunch of them should be familiar. So I couldn't get the whole picture to show in without it being tiny. So let's see, your groin or inguinal. That's like most of us know groin. Of course, pubis, where the pubic hair is. Femur is our upper leg bone. So most of us should know that. So not too terrible. If you look through this, even though it's a lot of words, the worst ones are a couple of these like cursal or curse, which is just calf, front of the leg. But the rest of these, hallux is that big toe, should be words that are used a little more just in general conversation when you're talking about the body. And then the backside is similar here. I mean, shoulder, acromial. So a lot of these words are named after the bones, and a few of them after the muscles. So if you learn them now, it'll make learning the bones way easier later on, because you'll be familiar. Oh, I remember that. I know that's located here on the back of the elbow. It's the olecranon process. Popliteal, your knee pops. So there's quirky little ways sometimes if you look online that other people have learned these. So I must admit I haven't learned a ton of them besides, yeah, if you pop your knee, it's popliteus. It's what you're going to tear or you're going to rupture there. Planta, sole your foot. So these terminologies shouldn't be too bad, even though there's a lot of them. So that's just the generalized area. So we'll refer to it. You can't describe what's hurting or what's been injured unless you can describe what part of the body it's part of. So that's what each of those little areas of the body are named, because you have to be able to narrow into where something has gone wrong. So in addition to that, so now we know, okay, it's the back of the knee that got injured, so the popliteal region. But now if we're referring to it in reference to something else, we also have to learn our directional terms. So if we're going towards our head, we're going superior. If we're going towards our feet, we're going inferior. So now we're referencing two things based on where they're located to each other. Anterior, so you got the front of your body is anterior, or ventral. We're upright, so we have two terms for some of the body parts, which if you're on all fours, you would not. There would be different directions for anterior and ventral. That's just a human thing because we're on two legs instead of four legs. Versus posterior. My grandma used to always tell me to sit on my posterior, so I've been familiar with that term since I was little, just to describe my bum. But the back side of your body is the posterior. And then medial, so your middle of your body. Midline versus lateral, so you're going away towards the sides. And I put some examples in here so you can kind of see where they relate to each other. So these are the pictures that came off of, that I took and I put on Blackboard. So these are not OpenStax pictures, but I like the arrows for each one instead of having like 15 arrows on it. But just realize that unfortunately the pictures I will be using on the Blackboard quizzes will be the picture off OpenStax, which I'll show you here in a second. But this just gives you a nice definition of each of the directional terms. Intermediate is not, you don't have to know that one. And the little stars here are just telling you that if you're on all fours, it's going to be different positions than those of us with two legs. So this is the one off of OpenStax that I will be using on the Blackboard quiz. I need to try to update Quizlet to be using her, but I really like the individual arrows better because this gets kind of chaotic because there's a ton of arrows. But just realize the superior and cranial, inferior and caudal are referring to the same thing. They're just showing you as two different spots here. Posterior, dorsal, anterior, ventral, interchangeable also. So you follow the arrows. Her midline is medial, going away from the midline is lateral. Proximal is close to the attachment points, so it's just for the limbs, versus distal is going away. Of course, the arm and legs are either the limbs, you can name them that way. So this shouldn't be too bad. And then left and right is good to practice. Everything, especially when we get to some of the stuff later in the semester, when you're looking at the picture, it may be a left bone, it may be a right bone. So you're going to have to get used to kind of visualizing that mirror image. So if you're looking at your patient, of course, it's going to be opposite to what you are. So don't accidentally write down left side because it's your left, and then your poor patient has something injected into them on the wrong spot. So left and right, you'll get so used to it, it'll be second nature. So that's directional terms, so how things relate to each other. So when we describe it, we can tell it's this versus this. Then when you go through and do things like MRIs, CT scans, echocardiograms, it's two-dimensional, so it's slicing through the body. So we have the different planes that's dividing the body into parts. The frontal plane or coronal means crown, so it's dividing your body into the front and the back, which is going through the crown of your head. And then sagittal is in the middle, dividing you into your left and right sides. And then your transverse plane is top and bottom, so slicing through here. The word transverse, you'll see naming some of the bones and some of the other body parts, so that one will come back to us. You'll just remember from this plane that it's dividing us into halves. So this is not OpenStack's picture. I just like the nice pictures of the MRI and stuff down here, so I borrowed it. But this is the OpenStack's one, but it shouldn't be a big deal using this picture or this picture because it's pretty self-explanatory that it's dividing front and back, left and right, or top and bottom. That one's pretty easy once you get used to it. And then last is our cavities. So we described our external structures. We described what words we're going to use to relate things to each other. Then if we're going to cut through us to look through sections and identify diseases, organ issues, now we're going more internal, and we've got to deal with all the cavities and what the organs are housed inside of us. So we already discussed what the word dorsal and ventral means. So we're dividing it into kind of front and back halves. So your spinal cord runs through the back half of your body, and then you've pretty much got the lung, heart, abdominal cavity kind of in the front section. So dorsal versus ventral cavities. And it's easier, this is just to give you some descriptions of it. It's easier when you actually see a picture here. So beautifully color-coded. Our cavities are divided generally by some tissue. The diaphragm, of course, is muscular. So you have your thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, pelvic cavity, cranial, vertebral, and then together dorsal versus ventral cavities. We just learned what cranium means, so that one shouldn't be hard. Vertebral, vertebrae, I think most of us know our vertebrae runs through our back. Our abdomen, that's like abdominal cavity, I think we know that. So yes, this is a lot of words, but luckily at our age, we've seen and heard a lot of these terms. So even if you don't remember exactly where they are, they should be familiar so that once you start reinforcing this stuff, it shouldn't be too bad. Now, you were asking about parietal pericardium and visceral pericardium. I don't know if I picked that picture up. There's a picture on OpenStax that has somebody's fist going through a balloon to demonstrate the layers around the heart, which I don't think I put on here, that's the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. So there's kind of two layers around the heart. One that sits on the heart itself, which is viscera, is always going to be the word that talks about what sits on the organs. And then usually the second part of the word tells you what organ. So cardium is heart. And then the parietal is the walls around the organs. So it doesn't sit on the organs, but just sits on the walls around them. So there's a nice tissue layer that covers the walls of every cavity. That's always going to be the parietal. So in this case, you're naming it based on the organ. So plural is lung, cardium is heart. And they're separated by tissues, diaphragm. Mediastinum is that tissue that kind of holds the heart in place. So this is a little less probably familiar. The rest of these bold terms should be pretty easy. Now, this one is probably the less familiar of the terms. So the bones are hard. There's just no way to get around them. So I'm trying to give you a little taste of some of the terms you're going to see that relates to the shape of the structure. The bump, the piece that sticks out, the hole. They have specialized names. It's science. We have to be able to communicate with other people that may not speak English. So we have to have science be our common denominator language-wise. It's not fair to say, why can't we just call it whole? Yes, well, that's trying to make us egocentric and then making everybody else in the world have to learn English. So we have to have a common language. And so the common language are these terms here. So yes, this is the translation for them to describe what they look like. But you can't just make everything English. We can't. I know that in America, a lot of other countries think we're egocentric anyway, but you got to have a common language that everybody has to suffer through, and so that includes us. So it can't just all be in English. So if you look through here, you've got a bunch of terms that describe kind of the appearance of what things look like. If you don't like just learning a definition, you can look for these terms in the bone section, so you have some visualization of what that looks like. A head, like the head of most of the bones, is where it's going to attach in. The femur, our leg bone, has a really nice head. That shouldn't be too bad. It looks rounded like a head. Facets are smooth spots where something rests on. So you have two bones that are going to move with each other. So you have to have a smooth spot for them to move. For ligaments and tendons and fluids to go in that cavity, you don't want anything rough, because rough, of course, would rub on each other and cause damage. That's why we get arthritis and other things like that. So then condyles kind of look like knuckles. There where two bones will bend with each other, but they actually rotate over. So it's not just open and close. It's actually rounded, so it's a twisting motion to go along with it. Invisible body has nice pictures. You can search for any of these terms and I'll show you where they are in the body if you want to look for some of this stuff. It also has a whole section on motion if you want to start visualizing how the bones move before we even add the muscles onto them. So find what works for you. But otherwise, if you're a rote memorizer, then you're just going to have to go through like on Quizlet and just keep going back and forth doing the term and then trying to figure out what it's referring to. But some of the fun ones that are fun, sarcastically fun on the skull are the foramen. So foramen are all the holes. Fissure is a long skinny hole. So those are some of the ones that you'll see a bunch on the skull. Meatus is only on the skull, and it only is this kind of funnel-shaped canal that goes into your head and is where your ear bones are located. Sinus, I think, well, any of us that have allergies, we know what a sinus is. It fills with fluid. It's those cavities generally in, again, your skull, because your skull is very complex. So some of these terms you will only see on the skull just because it's intentionally complex. We've got a lot of stuff going on up there that needs holes for it, needs the brain to sit into it. So that is the material you have to learn. I know it's a lot. I know that the Quizlet is due by tomorrow, but remember the Quizlet, you're free to sit with your pictures and write them in. I'm fine with you doing that. I don't consider that cheating. That's kind of a starting process for learning this stuff, to actually look it up, type in the name. So the hard part will be getting all this information in by Sunday. So you'll generally get a week to do the material and learn it well enough to be able to do the Blackboard quiz, which is the one where you have to know it all by yourself. You need to be able to spell it correctly. You need to be able to type it in and identify it without any other assistance. Versus Visible Body and Quizlets, you can use any source you want while you're doing it. It may hurt you to do it that way, but if you start, you can always do it again and again and again until the deadline comes. So you can start off looking it up, and if you get them all right, then come back and do it again without looking it up the next time. Okay, that's my jibber jabber for the day. I think I've covered as much as I want to for today. Any other questions? We know what's due for this week. So first thing first would be to get through Quizlet and start learning the terminology, flashcards, coloring books, whatever works for you. If you were able to find some other resource, use it. Some people will print out pages without all this stuff on there and just handwrite it in, which is basically what Quizlet is. But if you like to actually write with a pencil, you can do it that way too. There's a folder on Blackboard that has some of these blank pictures on it. If that's something that works for you, you would rather print out something and actually write it, then you can do that also. Today and this week, the hardest part is going to be getting into a rhythm, find a pattern, and figuring out what you're going to be able to do and what you're not going to be able to do as far as learning tools go.
Oh, I have a question.
Is this Shalom?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. I don't apologize. I just want to make sure that I'm starting to learn names, even though I don't know your faces.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay. Could you go over how to access the visible body quizzes again? I couldn't find it. When I was looking on like Blackboard.
Oh yeah, I was trying not to overwhelm you by throwing Invisible Body today because that's not until Monday, next Monday.
Okay, gotcha.
But no, that's not a big deal. But I can. I mean, anybody else wants to leave, you're free to leave. Yeah, I've got you down attendance-wise. You're good. Let me see if I can pull up Visible Body here.
Also, while you're at it, oh, this is Michaela. I don't know if you can
Hi,
hear me.
Michaela.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi.
Will you show us how to tag the photos while you're there?
Okay, yeah, no, I was hoping not to bug you with that either, but I have a tagged brain when I was working on yesterday. Excuse me. So okay, let's let me go back since I'm on untag this brain that I was working on and go back to the course content stuff.
Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I had all that pulled up just in case somebody asked, but I convinced myself I would do that maybe on Thursday instead of throwing so much at you on the first day.
Oh, it's okay. I've got like 4 other classes that just slap me upside the head with stuff. So, I mean, we're going to do it. Let's do it all.
That's a little rough to be doing in the summer. You're braver than me. I struggled when I just worked and took a 4-credit class in the summer. So
Really? Oh.
Summer is so fast that I'm always amazed that you guys would choose to do more than a couple classes. But it's all good. You'll get through it. We will do the best I can. So, okay, let me again see if I can pull this up. So this is logged in. If you go to Visible Body Courseware, if you haven't created accounts, it's going to ask you to do a free trial. It's going to ask you or to purchase the program, and then you'll have to plug in the course code that I sent you. So this is all my courses, of course. But you should have one that was labeled Biology 2101 Summer, sections A and D. And you should see something similar to this. I can go into student preview, but it's kind of clunky. I don't like to do it, but let me see. So this should be all the stuff you see. So like the lab activity folders I have on Blackboard, there is once you get to the stuff that's actually due in visible body, it will relate to the lab. So lab 1, they've got some random stuff that might be helpful, but they don't allow us to quiz over terminology. So there is no visible body quiz this week. Same thing with tissues. They have tissue stuff if you wanted to look at it, but they won't let us quiz over it. They don't have us access that stuff. So the first thing that actually is quizable on visible body is the skin. And so you'll see the visible body quiz here.
Oh, gotcha. I see it.
And then you go in and you pull it up. See. It'll pull up on a separate page. And it'll just randomly select some of the terms that we ask you to know. And it's matching. Visible body is matching. So it's not perfect system to what Blackboard is like. Quizlet is a little better for that. But of course, this one you can rotate and you can move and you can add layers and take away layers. Unfortunately, it requires a really good internet connection to have it work. So if you're taking the Blackboard and visible body quizzes, please make sure you've got a good signal. If you crash, it'll close you out and won't let you get back in. Well, I mean, visible body will, but Blackboard won't. So yeah, so you can use your mouse and zoom in and out. And then the key thing that I will talk about more later on is you guys need to start getting familiar with hiding things. Oh, I don't think it doesn't look like it actually lets you hide on here, does it? Maybe there's no reason to hide on here. On the skull, you have to actually hide stuff to be able to find the stuff buried underneath it, but it doesn't even give you the option to hide. It will on the skull, though. And then you just go through, and if it asks you, so select a layer of the dermis. Okay, so dermis, I just coincidentally clicked it on a layer of the dermis. That was not intentional. And then, of course, you would submit your answer. Then you do the next one. So that's the quiz, but it's based on their pictures, so you can learn the structures first before you take the quiz. Ideally, that would be the way to do it. So let's go back to visible body. I don't know why I went into my courses, but and go back into integumentary, and they have these modules that will take you into the apps, or you can just go down into the My Apps. You can download the app onto some device. I use the web version for everything, but you can't take the quizzes on the apps. You can practice, but the actual quizzes have to be on a Windows Mac computer. And so you'll see you've got a few different options here. Most of the quizzes all come from this Human Anatomy Atlas. The upside of the module is that it will take you directly to the view that relates to that information. But you'll see here in a second, it'll pull up, you got a ton of different views you can see. Again, requires a good, I think they suggested 30 as your speed to be able to get these to pull up nicely. But you've got regional views, you've got your system views. So if we go through here, the first one is integumentary system, if I can find it. Or if you can't figure it out, sometimes you just search for stuff. Okay, so here's the pictures. So this is like what they were showing you in that quiz.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can search for different structures. So like you're looking for dermis. And unfortunately, it shows you there's a ton of different views because there's different structures in the dermis, and you can tell it, show me, and it'll highlight it in blue. So unfortunately, it's looking like I can't tag it on the skin one. So if I assign that to you guys, I will have to take that away. I knew you could do it on the bones, but I must admit I didn't go through all the systems. But there's usually a little thing here that says add a tag. For whatever reason, it's not letting you do that on the skin. Oh, there it is. Okay, that's strange. So here you see the add a tag. What I'm going to give you is I'm going to list out some structures I want you to tag. I don't think I had you tag skin anyway, just because that's the last thing you do right before that mini exam. But the other ones, you go through and you say, I'll give you a structure and you'll search for it. You click on it or do the anatomy search, and then you just click on add tag. And if I give you 10 tags, it'll just have they'll be listed everywhere on here, pointing to the thing. And then if you go down here, unfortunately, my little thing is hiding it. Save a view. And you should be able to log in. Or for me, I want you guys to download the image once you've got all the tags on it. And it'll save a screenshot. And then you just send that JPEG or convert to whatever. JPEG is fine. I think that's what it downloads it as to me. And it'll have the picture with all the little tags on it. That's just documenting that you actually went in the visible body and you found some things, that you actually used it and were able to identify. So I'll pick generally some of the harder stuff. Just it's a way for me to document that you're practicing with visible body before hopefully you're taking the quizzes. So you're learning how to tag, you're learning how to search, you're learning how to remove or add things when it comes to things like the skull. That's a ways from now, but I guess if you've got a minute here, let's go back and go pick up the skull here. So if you're looking at the skull, there's a ton of stuff hidden inside here. So you have to get very familiar with using this hide button, because the only way you're going to be able to find some of this internal stuff on the inside here is you have to hide all these outside bones. And on the quiz, they're not going to have the bones hidden. You have to be able to hide the bones and to find the structures. And you can zoom in really close. The hard part about the holes, Freeman, is the fact you have to click the walls around the hole. So if it's really tiny, sometimes it takes a couple clickings to actually get the hole and not the bone around it. So you can see it's just this, you just have to click the side. So you just have to practice zooming in enough where you can actually click on the wall and get the correct thing. Like here, I accidentally clicked down below and I got the bone versus this is the hole. So make sure it's going all the way around the hole. Otherwise, you clicked on the wrong structure and you'll get it wrong on the quiz. Again, remember on the quiz, you're allowed to take it as many times as you want until you get full credits. If you take it and get a 5 and take it again just for fun and get a 4, your score never goes down. It's always your highest score. So once you get a 5, there's no way to eliminate your 5. You will always have full credit. So unfortunately, once the quiz is done, it will shut it off and there's no way for us to reopen it to you guys. So unfortunately, the quizzes won't be study guides you'll be able to use after the quizzes are due for the midterm and the final. It's just something that Visible Body says they're trying to work on. Just currently, there's no way to keep it open and let you guys continue using it as practice without assigning it a grade. Only way to really practice is just to go through and do this version like we're right now and go, okay, this is the temporal bone. Okay, and you clicked on it and it shows you, yes, you were correct. So you have to kind of improvise, if you will. There's no way for it to randomly select things and have you answer once the quiz is turned in. So visible body quizzes will unfortunately only be good for that 1 week while you're learning that material. Then you just have to go back and just use the app to study if that's helpful. Okay, but yeah, make sure you can hide. And if you accidentally hide stuff, you can always go back and make everything go back again. So you can undo everything. So the refresh button will put all your bones back again. Then you can go back and hide stuff. Muscle attachments. You can do a lot of, if you're, I don't like to, I was going to use the word nerd. That's not a good choice. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can play around and do a bunch of fun stuff in here. Just, of course, your eyes are on time limits, that may not be something you have time to fuss with right now, but it'll tell you what goes through the holes. It'll tell you what muscles attach to the bones. It has some diseases and disorders that it'll talk about how it affects these parts of the body. None of that currently is mandatory. So the diseases or pathologies is this little stethoscope. They've got definitions that they'll go through and tell you about it, what runs through it, what size it is. And then, of course, the attachments are showing you what muscles attach to these spots. So there's a lot of things you can play around with, but ultimately, the key things that you're going to have to do for me and for grading is to go through and hide and be able to tag. And just remember, if you can't find something, you can always search for it. And if it's not in the view you're currently looking at, then you would have to go back to this main page, and then you can always search for it in there, and it'll tell you which assignments actually have that structure. So it can be kind of complex, but it's got some cool stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it was on. Okay, thank you.
Anything else in Visible Body? Once you start playing with it, you'll be able to find out more so what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And then we can always come back and revisit this stuff at the end of any of these meetups. Because it's definitely much easier to describe this stuff when we're online than it is to try to do it through email.
I believe it. Okay.
So if it's something that is more pertinent that you can't wait for the next meetup, or you can't attend for some reason, we can always, I mean, you can go into this Blackboard, collaborate with me at pretty much at any time. So I can always set up a session if you need to do a one-on-one. Is everybody else okay? Super overwhelmed?
Oh, I have another question. So the PowerPoint that you went over today, is that gonna be on Blackboard?
It will be posted on Blackboard, yep.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I think that's all the questions that I have.
And these videos, we'll see how fast it starts crashing Blackboard, because sometimes the videos get to be too big, will be posted on Blackboard also. So if there's any part of this that you wanted to go back and review, you'll have access to it. It usually takes it sometimes 3 or 4 hours for it to actually show up. So let me see if I can show you where that's going to be. It's like, where is Blackboard? So can you actually see Blackboard right now? What are you guys seeing on your screen? Because it's not telling me what it's showing me, you guys.
I see visible body still.
Still, okay. So it is going to make me switch between pages. Okay, so let me switch applications here.
Okay, it's showing Blackboard now.
Okay, so yeah, I'm used to Zoom, so trying to get used to Blackboard Collaborate, it's going to be harder. But if you go into Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, there is just a plain old Blackboard Collaborate, but it's different. Now, if I can remember how to do it. Oh, it's, yeah, up here in the menu. It goes to the recordings. And I think I might be able to link to those. This is an old one in music. That was me testing it this morning. So yeah, it would be in here. I turned it on and turned off the recording this morning when I first came in accidentally. So that one needs to get deleted, but it'll show up in here as soon as we stop. It takes it a few hours sometimes to upload, but so then you always have ability to go back and look at any of these. So hopefully there's enough resources that you guys will find what works for you and that we can smoothly get through this summer with no face-to-face material. Is everybody else okay? Everybody staying healthy? Let me see. Oh, I have been talking and not looking at the chat, so let me see if there's anything in there. Okay, let me see if I missed any of these. So yeah, you already said it out loud about the Quizlet, and so yeah, do the definition, which will show you a picture. So, and then Willie, bold word for the stuff on that Quizlet, or not Quizlet, that OpenStax pictures, those pictures. The parentheses are usually okay, but ideally the bold words. Yes, spelling does count. I will go back and regrade the quizzes because there's very limited stuff you can do with Blackboard. It's kind of black or white. This is the word, you got it right. So if you put in a space or switch two letters around, of course it's going to mark it wrong. But for the Blackboard quizzes and exams, I will go back and regrade them. It will take me probably a week to get to those, but I will go back and look for anything that I feel is okay, even if it wasn't exactly what was in Blackboard, as far as the answer goes. Yes, I will put all these PowerPoints and this video up. I think so. I think I answered most of these now, making sure I didn't miss anything. So I know this is overwhelming. So this is why I tried to use this as a way to structure it. If you're somebody that doesn't really need the structure, then go do whatever you want to do. But the whole point of structuring this with these meetups is to give you an intro and then try to convince you or guide you into then now leaving and going and working on Quizlets. So that's in my head, that's what I am envisioning. It's going through, doing these meetups, talking, trying to figure out what stuff we're going through, and then hopefully sometime today you will have enough time that you will go through and you actually start answering the questions in Quizlet. Like I said, you can start off using notes so that at least that the first time you're finding it, you're writing it down. That's a learning process. First time you do it with help, and then you slowly, of course, eliminate the help. And then should hopefully have it down pat before you try to take that Blackboard quiz. So the PowerPoint is currently not up, but I will add it as soon as we're done here. And it will be in the Lab 1 activities folder. Try to keep the main page as little clutter as possible, that I will try to keep everything related to each of these sessions in their respective folders. So Lab 1 would have this information in it. Is everybody else okay? If you're good and you don't have any other questions for me, you're free to go work on Quizlet, eat some lunch, do whatever you need to do. And I will mark down the attendance. And hopefully see you on Wednesday at the same time. Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I mean, I can close out the meeting, but I just want to make sure there's no other questions.
Thank you.
And also, I know a bunch of people just left, but there is a discussion board. You guys may have used it for some of your other classes. So if you want to talk to each other, you can always share information on there too.